I'm not exactly what you call a joyful person, or at least I wasn't back then. I didn't have a troubled upbringing. My mom and dad got along for the most part. They argued, of course, but no more than my friends' parents. I think I just hated being stuck in the small town of Marlbank. And when I say town, it was in all honesty closer to a village. We had one corner store to get food if we wanted it, and a rusted out old park if we felt like having fun. Most of my friends lived near the bigger town of Belleville, and the few kids my age who lived near me were all obsessed with hockey or going mudding in their daddy's pickup truck. I didn't hate the Sens, but every fucking sentence with these kids revolved around the sport. It didn't take long for them to see how disinterested I was, and soon was avoided altogether. I suppose I could have mustered up a friendly and overenthusiastic grin or sigh to fake interest, but that's just not me. So when I turned 17 and was given my first car, a 2003 blue Saturn from my parents, I was eager to leave this tiny town as much as I could. On Saturdays I was allowed out until 11, and after dropping my friend Jeremy off at his place, I was 2 hours past my curfew. Jeremy lives on Thrasher Road. If you're not local to the area, I would describe it as a long stretch of winding turns, surrounded by thick forest on either side. The Frank Conservation Center is on Thrasher, if you know where that is. Thrasher also has another landmark that distinguishes itself from other roads: a large cemetery. Have you ever got the feeling of shivers or fear when driving at night? Almost as if something is going to pop out and grab you? Well, that's how I felt whenever I was near that cemetery. While inching closer to the cemetery, that feeling struck me, and once the gates were in sight, I nearly had a heart attack. Standing at the opening of the gates was an old lady, just waving. The lady is standing in the middle of the cemetery at nearly 1:30 in the morning. I drove past her and continued to drive until it hit me. Is she okay? Maybe she was lost or hurt and I drove past her. This is a fairly secluded road, and I can almost guarantee no other car would drive past her until morning. So I decided to stop, reverse, and see what the problem was. I know it's stupid, but come on. Would you really leave someone by themselves in the middle of the night? Especially as fragile as an elderly woman? When I saw her again, I was relieved. She had a wide grin on her face. However, she didn't come to my car and just continued to stand at the gates. I got out and stepped towards her. Everything okay? Oh, yes. My husband Richard and I are visiting our son today. Okay? In the middle of the night? The woman replied. Why not? It's the perfect time to be with him. There's no one to bug us. I didn't know how to respond. The woman answered me in such a nonchalant tone as if I was asking for directions, or we were conversing in your typical everyday conversation. I was at the point of getting the hell out of there, when suddenly she asked me, Can you give us a ride home? We're not far, just on Goodfellow Lane. The woman still had the same kind demeanor on her face, and honestly, for a moment, I actually thought about her request. Maybe it was the whole old lady visiting her son at the grave that made me feel kind of sorry for her. I then quickly came to my senses. Sorry, I can't. I have to get going before my parents chew me out. Oh, okay. Thank you anyway, honey. She looked heartbroken, and the way she said it made me feel for her. Fine. Huh? I can give you guys a ride, but we have to leave now. The woman almost immediately perked up. Thank you. I'll go get him. The woman made her way towards the cemetery. I walked back to my car and, after a moment, noticed the cold air was starting to get to me. So I hopped in my car and waited. Minutes went by and still no sign of her or her husband. I stepped out to see if I could hear them coming. There was nothing. Usually during this time of year, birds or grasshoppers can be heard echoing through the woods. But not tonight. I guess I never noticed the silence until now. I decided to inch to the gates and call for her. If I didn't get an answer back, I would leave. I stepped to the gates and was about to call out. However, I was caught off guard by the voice of the old lady. It was faint, but I could hear her. Are you guys ready? The lady either didn't hear me or she didn't care to respond. I could still hear her talking. Maybe she was just saying goodbye. I didn't want to be a dick, but I had to go. I cautiously walked into the cemetery to let her know it was time to leave. I flipped on my phone's flashlight and made my way inside. To my relief, after a few seconds of walking, I could hear her voice get louder. I guess she wasn't too far from the gate after all. As I made my way towards the noise, it abruptly stopped and was soon replaced by the sound of digging. What the hell are they doing, I thought. The only thing I could think of is that they were burying something at the grave. Maybe flowers or a toy. I weaved through the tombstones the best I could with what little light my phone could produce. After a moment, the sound grew louder and louder until it sounded a few feet away. I turned my phone in the direction, expecting to see her and her husband. However, that wasn't what I saw. The lady was standing by a grave, fucking digging it up with a shovel. I stood in shock, almost in a trance, watching this tiny woman plant the shovel in the ground. Tick, tick, tick. She just kept digging, never breaking from the rhythm. I had my light pointed directly at her, but she never looked up. I finally came to my senses and booked it out of there. Ignoring the stones, I ran as fast as I could to the gate. The whole time I was running, I felt her behind me. Any minute that shovel would come down and crack my skull, or I would fall or run into something and she would pounce. But she never did. I made it to the gate and eventually to my car. I slammed my door and drove. I must have been doing at least 70 kilometers on that road. I didn't care. I blasted Metallica to get my mind off what I saw, and after I made it home, my mom was indeed pissed. I was grounded from using the car for a month, which sucked, but my night definitely could have been a whole lot worse. I told Jeremy about it at school, and he called bullshit. In all honesty, I would have too. That was 5 years ago, and I've never drove on Thrasher since then. I'm coming down in a few days to visit my mom, as well as Jeremy. I'll be going in the day to visit him. I know the odds of her being there are non-existent, but maybe a part of me wants her to be. I do still wonder why she was there at night, and who in fact she was digging up, to take with us to Goodfellow Lane.